another episode of Riding with Jonathan. Today my guest is Julie Becker. She's the CEO of the St. Francis House, a longtime friend and one of my longest running clients. I think we were just discussing we're at 14 years.
Yeah, is that crazy?
That is crazy. That is where I kind of started. It was a year into when I started, and Julie and I met, started doing our fundraising, and we haven't looked back. So in this episode, we're gonna just discuss a few things with her and see where it takes us.
Sounds great.
All right, so Julie, how long have you been with the St. Francis House?
Well, this past July, I started my 20th year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just a couple days.
All right, and what did you do before the St. Francis House?
Well, I've always been in the nonprofit sector, but prior to St. Francis House, I worked for Volunteers of America Dakotas, and I helped people with disabilities obtain and maintain employment in the community.
Okay. So, let's see, what do I have? What is you do a lot of things, especially you're very hands-on, you help with the fundraising aspect, you're the CEO. What did you say your favorite thing is that you get to do throughout the year?
Oh, wow. You know, that's really hard because there's so many different things. In what I've always told people, when you love your job like I do, it's not work. You just enjoy it. And so if I had to say, it's probably the interactions with the guests at their worst times and at their best times, and seeing guests come back and become volunteers. And I even have some past guests that are my employees now. So, I mean, that's probably the best thing. But, of course, you know, I always have to say I love my fundraising when I get to do my annual dinner and auction with you, the Larsen Larsen team.
Yeah, but when we do that, there are a lot of highlights of past guests that you have helped.
Yes.
People who have graduated, so to speak, your system,
Yes.
paid off their debts. Tell us a little bit about what St. Francis House does. Like, if I was a person coming in, what could I expect?
Well, the St. Francis House is an ecumenical ministry to the homeless in our community. We help people rebuild their lives, but in a zero tolerance program where there's no drinking or doing drugs. And we also require our guests to work, because in order to end their homelessness, we have to do the best to get them stable and so they can afford their own place to live.
Had to honk at those people.
They gave a big wave.
Yeah.
So I mean, and when people ask me what successes are, that's really on the person, not necessarily, you know, who had the most money paid off or who left with the most money. Everybody is individualized, but it's really great. Like the year that we reunited a father with his daughter, and she got to see him sober and doing well, and then later he walked her down the aisle. And you know, those are the cool things when you can really help reunite a family back together.
Yeah, that was an emotional event. I remember that. He had no idea. And
that I did it.
Yeah, and then there she was after all those years.
Right.
And that was amazing that could happen. So tell us a little bit about your fundraiser then. Let's get into that. For the people who are watching, maybe we get some tips, some tricks, some ideas of what you do.
Well, first and foremost, I think that you have to have a very open mind to your fundraiser. You can't always do the same thing, the same packages, because you know, you got to spice it up. You got to do some things differently, and you don't always have to copy the other nonprofits. But when nonprofits work together and say, oh, you know what, that really worked for them, I'm going to try it, but maybe in this different of a capacity, that always goes well. And like we said, remember heads and tails? Remember the first year we did that? People are like, oh my gosh. But we would never get rid of that one because people just expect it and they always love it. But we've tried the 100-yard dash, auction chicken,
mystery box.
The mystery box. Remember the year that we auctioned off the 5 toolboxes? Because that's when we were in construction building our home that we're in right now. So yeah, I think it's always being creative and thinking outside the box. You know, remember we did the wall of wine for how long? And then we added the not this year, last year, the whiskey bourbon pole. And sold 23 bottles in 18 minutes.
Turns out people really wanted their hard liquor and not the wine.
Even though we're a zero tolerance program, people do like to purchase you know, alcohol.
Their alcohol, and I think that comes down to is some of these people, they don't need anything, but they want to give, and they want to give it in a way that's meaningful to them. And so we have to find those avenues that people can do that, and that is just one way where people feel like they can give and contribute, and then they get something back, whether they use it or don't use it. That's up to them, but then they have it.
You know, a big part, Jonathan, that you and I have always been able to do every year with your team is looking at the agenda and making sure it flows. And that there's sometimes you can't fit everything in, so you gotta think of how to do it differently, and making sure that even when people challenge you, sometimes it's a board member, sometimes it's a donor, but there's always, I always say, a meaningness to our madness of how we do our event. And doing the fund a mission, and that's a great way that if people really don't want another package or a trip or this or that, it's a great way for them just to give to the agency and support the work that we're doing and know that they're making a difference on that special project. And those have been everything from windows and the family units to playground equipment to, remember the year we had to do all that surveying work, and we thought we weren't going to raise hardly any money, and I think it just kind of exploded. And so yeah, it's just always being creative.
And in my first video that I did alone, which isn't as much fun or informative, but I did it on timelines because I have several clients that when I start working with them, that's where we can raise the most money, is by adjusting the timeline and making sure that we're raising money throughout the night and not making it an afterthought after all the speakers and different things. We get all that out and then we ask for money, and that's where you lose your audience, because once they're done with that, they kind of get up and they leave, and then we didn't have that chance to ask them for money.
You know, and that's a really good point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because you have to decide, is this a celebration thank you event, or is this a fun raiser? Not fundraiser, a fundraiser. You're having fun raising money. And you cannot always have both, and sometimes you have individuals who are like, well, we want more of the awards and more of the celebrations and those. Well, then that's when you have a thank you event and you create that opportunity. People can still financially give at that, but when you're having a major event, everybody who's coming knows that you're going to be asking for money in some sort or support. And that's why you have to make it fun and that you're raising money.
Correct. That is so true. It is a tough balance, and I've had to advise people to cut out things, and they're like, but we've always done it this way. And it comes down to the people that are coming there, that are inviting their friends, they want it to be a fun time. They go to a lot of these events, and they kind of want in, they want out, they want you to take their money. And I always figure it's a good way that people get exposure to your organization, and if they need more information or they want more, then you can have a one-on-one meeting with them.
Correct.
And then at that point, you can make them into a more long-term donor or give them other options of how to support you.
You always have to remember that just because it was done one way and you've always done it, I think of all the things that we have changed with ours, from even this time, how all the bid pedals were on the tables in the check-in process. every year we listen to what people have said, the positives and maybe things that we can improve. And you want to always listen to all of it. Some of it you're going to say, yeah, I don't know if that'll work. But really listen to what they have to say, because those are the people who are coming to the event and supporting you. And when they see that you've implemented something that maybe they've mentioned, now you have just cultivated that relationship for future raising of funds with them.
That's correct, yeah. And like I said, we've worked together for at least 14 years.
Right.
And you pretty much, you don't beat around the bush. You say the way it is. I'm that way. So
right.
After every event that we have done, we have a meeting, and then we sit down and we go over what we like, what we didn't like, what we would like to change. And no feelings are hurt during that time. It's just, how do we improve? And that's why it's great having you, because I try out a lot of my new things with your event. You're very good at allowing me to try new things and saying, hey, let's see if it works. And then once we test them at your event, then I take them on to all my other events. But it's worked out. We've had some really good success, and some that maybe wasn't as successful, but it was definitely interesting.
We tried it.
Yeah.
But you know, the other part that I like about our partnership is that if you have a new person that you would like to invite to the event, because maybe they're unsure of doing the fund admission, and you can say, okay, come on and watch and see how it's done, and how Julie does as an example. Not saying that everything that we do it for our event is right, because I pay attention to everyone else, but I think that's what's really important is then, because when you have sometimes the same people invited, then they know what to expect, and it just seems like it's okay, these people all do their event this way, so I know how it does. I don't have to be confused. I can just, it works for me.
And that's another point that I will always drive home is, if people have to think, they won't spend money.
Correct.
When people come to your event, they want to know, the first thing, they get their bid number, they get checked in, but they want to know where they're sitting. They go straight to their table, and once they're comfortable with that, then they're going to go find their food and drink. And then after that, and only after they have their needs met, then they'll go look at your silent auction, live auction, things like that. And it even comes down onto the timeline again, the programming. If people have to guess what's going to happen next or where are we at in the program, it makes it difficult. But if we just lay it out and lead them, kind of a thing, guide them, I think people have a better and more enjoyable experience.
I'm 100% with you. I couldn't agree more. And to be honest with you, prior to me even doing the fundraising that I've done at the St. Francis House, when I went to auctions, whether it be for the Pheasants Forever or the Wild Turkey Federation, I was the same way. If I had to think about it, or I didn't know, I wasn't going to look like I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just not going to participate in that one. And so you really want to make sure that you are informing your attendees, making it easy, making it fun. It may be more work on our end, but that's what it's supposed to be, because you want them to walk out and go, wow, now that was a great event. And I may have spent more money than I was planning on, but I can guarantee you they'll come back again because you made it easy.
Yes, and that's what I always strive for. I love it when people come up to me and say, hey, I was planning on spending this much, but because of you, I spent this much more, you know, and then they thank me for getting them to spend more, because a lot of these people come to your event, they have an idea what they're going to spend, but the goal is, can we get them to give a little bit more, but not like be pushy about it.
Right.
It's something that they're saying, hey, I'll give this much, but then if we do our job correctly and we tell the story correctly, they feel led to give even more.
I think the thing that keeps running through my mind is that, what was it, $8-10 bottle of gourmet Jelly Bellies.
Oh,
and we auctioned off. And you could go out to Sam's or Costco and you could buy it for $20, but what did we end up? We sold it for like $500-600 because it was a quirky item. You got the right crowd in there.
Yep.
It wasn't about the Jelly Bellies. It was about people competing against, and the whole thing raising money for a mission that they believed in.
Correct. It wasn't about what they got, it's about what they could give on that. And I have that video somewhere on my YouTube thing. I think my dad gave me that thing at Jelly Bellies and said, hey, go sell this and see what you can do.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be phenomenal because, again, it just shows that these people, sometimes they don't need anything or they don't want the hassle of taking it home.
Right.
And so you get them something like that, then they could bid and they just do it and they have fun with it.
Yeah, because many times, you know, we've been so blessed that the people who have won stuff, they go ahead and they donate it right back to the agency. Because remember the year that our board always does that live auction package, and it was meat, the board, and it was a side of beef, and the winner just donated it back, knowing how much we feed guests at the St. Francis House, that protein. So yeah, it's just quite entertaining.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you want to have those opportunities of items that you can sell twice or items that would be good for people to donate back.